ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, my dear colleagues, and all the distinguished people who have gathered here in this room, even though the weather has played a little bit of a spoiler. I'm Rohan Laik, and on behalf of the ICRC and the head of the regional delegation, I welcome you to the 18th edition of the Annual Media Awards, conducted jointly by the Press Institute of India and the International Committee of the Red Cross. As you're all aware, the theme for this year is strengthening disability inclusion through stories with a humanitarian lens. Let me start by welcoming our special guests for the first part of this evening's program. I would like to request that Mr. Shashi Nair, Director and Editor, Press Institute of India, Chennai, Mr. Kediraval Omar, Head of the ICRC Regional Delegation for India, Nepal, Bhutan, and the Maldives, and Shri Rajendra Ratnu, IAS, Executive Director of the National Institute of Disaster Management, to please join us on stage. Thank you. Before we hear from our honorable guests, we would like to play a small video here for all of you, showcasing some of the entries we have received for this year. Although the compelling and powerful articles and photographs that were submitted made the process of deciding the winners a challenge for our esteemed jury members, they showcased, however, the stellar work of these journalists to cover such essential topics on ground zero. If you could please play the video.
Talking about the specially able people and their lives, it has always been one of the subjects that I choose to follow, and one of the subjects that I was always concerned about. And as a photojournalist, I believe bringing their stories to life can be a way of radiating hope and awareness in the society. I should say this award will be a milestone in my career as a photojournalist, and I thank PII and ICRC once again.
For the last 18 years, I've been writing about how inclusive art, culture, and other public spaces are for different communities, including the queer and the disabled. While writing these pieces and while reporting on them, I've come to realize that the world is still stuck in the binaries of gender and ableism. Today, there are very few organizations and awards that recognize the complex layers that underlie disability inclusion in India. And it is really commendable that the PII-ICRC annual awards have chosen to recognize humanitarian stories on this very, very important subject.
The fighting spirit of contingently disabled people like Agil is unparalleled. Their demand was to include 1,031 people who were excluded from the list of endosulfan. Aerial spraying of endosulfan in the cashew estate of Kasaragod, Kerala over a period of 20 years caused severe health hazard and death. Many consider the endosulfan tragedy as equivalent to the Bhopal gas tragedy, and I promise to continue using my lens to amplify the voice of those who need to be heard.
I have always had an interest in sports since I was young. This was a good way for me to mix my passion for writing and sport. As a journalist, you're always on the lookout for an interesting story to tell. And just the thought of a person without arms competing and winning a major medal in a sport where the upper body strength is integral was intriguing. The theme for this year's award seemed a perfect fit for this story. And by getting this recognition, it is a nice confidence booster as it tells me that my work is making a difference.
My father, Krishnamurti, also a photographer. That's why I choose photography as my career. About the particular photo of Jiramon, I was to cover the license giving ceremony by Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan to Jiramon. When I saw the pleasing and confident face of Jiramon, I decided to capture that moment. I submitted the photograph for the award because through recognizing me, it is also a motivation to Jiramon, such a human beings.
The reason why I chose this story is because there is not a lot of awareness about disability sports, especially Paralympic swimming. So, Geeta told me how free and how liberating she feels when she's in water and she hates coming out of the swim. When this award means a lot to me, and when I told this to Geeta, this news to Geeta that this story won the award, she was so happy that there's more awareness on Paralympic swimming and how having accessible swimming pools is the need of the hour.
Now, before I invite Shashi Nair, Director and Editor at the Press Institute of India, Chennai, for his inaugural address, here are a few highlights from his distinguished career. After 8 years as an officer with the United India Insurance Company, Shashi Nair moved to TTK Group, where he had a decade-long stint as head of public relations and corporate communications. He then switched to journalism full-time and worked for the Times of India Group, World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers, and the Hindu Business Line. He was a columnist for the New Indian Express and for many years wrote on heritage, sports, and civic issues for Madras Musings and The Hindu, also contributing to books on the history of Chennai and some of its prominent citizens and organizations. In 2011, he took charge as the editor at the Press Institute of India and then as director in 2013. I welcome Shashiji on the dais for his inaugural address. Shashi.
It's Shashi Naya. I'm very happy to be here. It is always wonderful to see a full house. I don't think I have seen this in the last 5 or 6 years that we've had this program here. I'm particularly delighted on behalf of the Press Institute of India, which for many years was in Delhi, your city, from 1963, and then in the mid-90s moved to Madras, that is now Chennai. On behalf of PII and the ICRC, I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Ratnu. I'm very happy you're here this evening because last year when you were here as chief guest, I wasn't able to make it. My mother was unwell, and I'm happy that you are here once again as chief guest, and I've been able to make it this time. Pleasure having you. Kedir, Oma and the ICRC team, congratulations on the 75th anniversary of the Geneva Convention. I think you have year-long programs and you've already begun them. It's 18 years since the ICRC and the Press Institute of India instituted these awards. When I was coming on the Indigo flight today, there was this thing stuck on the seat in front of me saying 18 years, time just flies. Indigo, incidentally, is also 18 years old. And I was thinking to myself, yes, time does fly. And when we started this 18 years ago, it was Mr. Surendra Singh Oberoi. Please stand up and people can see you a little more closely, who actually set the ball in motion and or set the ball rolling. And he's been there with us over the years. And to Kedir, especially, I must say congratulations because he's been supportive of this program even during the COVID years. And COVID looks like, something that happened years ago, but it was just, 3 or 4 years ago. We seem to have forgotten about it, but people still talk about working hybrid and spending 2 or 3 days at home. But during the COVID years, we still had these awards and we still made the presentations virtually. And I think you and your team, contributed a lot. And I really appreciate your support in this project that we've been doing together for the past several years. Thank you so much. I'm also very happy this year that, thank you, Rohan. In the jury panel we have tonight, we have 3 former PII-ICRC award winners. And that is, in a sense, a passing of the baton from an earlier generation to the next. They will, of course, be part of the panel discussion. You'll meet them. So I'm really very happy. Kavita, Rakhi, and Himanshu for being here and for coming on this side of the fence and judging entries. And of course, I'm happy that Jaya is here. Jaya and I were supposed to be here in Delhi in 2015, but that flight didn't take off from Chennai because we had the 2015 floods. So we finally made it together. And of course, Madhavi Lata, thank you for being on this panel this year. Great to have you. She's a champion, by the way, and she's also a filmmaker. And I was very, very impressed when she invited me, and I went and saw some of the films. And more than the films, I was impressed by the sheer adulation that she got and the support from people who were there. And finally, I must also thank the ICRC team, but particularly Ashish. Where are you? Yeah, there you are. Ashish, please stand up. You did a wonderful job this year. You did a wonderful job this year. I know you are and have been caught up with various ICRC programs, but despite all that, you were the one who really coordinated, arranged our meetings on Zoom, WhatsApp messages, created that WhatsApp group, which I think wasn't necessary. I had been part of a few WhatsApp groups where you did that. I was joking. And of course, you arranged the trophies, the certificates, and you communicated about our travel, etc., in the midst of all your work. So thank you very much. And there's Reggie Simon in Chennai who works for me. He, meticulously put all the entries together and then, listed out the names and phone numbers and email IDs and the offices they work for. So these are people who work behind the scenes, but I think their names must be mentioned because without them, we wouldn't have the smooth sailing that we often take for granted. So yes, so those 18 years, I was not thinking about 18 years of Indigo or of ICRC. I was thinking of my years when I joined journalism, when I was, in my early 30s. I joined journalism late, and then I was thinking, wow, such a lot has changed, There are 2 sides to it. One is, of course, news publishers themselves, news publishers meaning news owners, those who own the newspaper, those who own, those who are the management. They themselves are desperately trying to improve revenues. Advertising revenue has dipped over the years. It was terrible during COVID years. I think it's picking up now for some major newspapers. The cost of newsprint has skyrocketed. And of all places, would you believe it that we import newsprint, most of it from Ukraine. And after the war, you know what happened. It's been very difficult to get newsprint from those places, and the cost has gone through the roof. It's kind of stabilized now a bit. From advertising, the swing has begun or had begun in the last few years to subscription-based revenue generation. And that's not easy. In the first place, the printed newspaper, I think, costs hardly 10 rupees. Even Sri Lanka, I think it costs more. But so what they are doing is bundling print and digital and offering you a package. And all of us get messages constantly saying, please subscribe, please. So they're desperate to have subscribers because advertising has dipped. This is happening the world over. In India, it hasn't happened so much, but it's already begun. Surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly because they're very good at what they do, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Schibsted in Norway, Bonnier in Sweden, and some other newspapers. There's one called Stuff in New Zealand. They're all doing very well with digital only subscriptions. New York Times, of course, bundles it with print. But today we have very few print readers world over, and it is dwindling even here in India. We don't know how long we are going to continue to read print. So when newspapers are after you for subscriptions, they are basically after you for digital. Digital advertising income is also very low. It's probably like, pennies when you compare it with print ads, full page. So overall, the scene is rather bleak. Why I'm telling you all this is to give you a brief background and also for journalists and others here to know. In the midst of all this, the big news publishing houses across the world, including here in India, some of them, not all, but a few, have conducted research and studies over a period, maybe 2 years, 3 years, and they have found a few things that they should do or can do to attract readers. So there's desperation to hold on to existing readers, and there is, desperation to get new readers, especially the younger generation, to read. Not a newspaper. The younger generation is not going to read a newspaper. They're only going to look at the screen, whether it's on mobile, whether it's on computer, etc. And one of the things they found out, and this is what I want to tell you, among the top 2 or 3 elements that people really look for, one, of course, I think top of the list in most places is local news. People want news in their neighborhood. People want news about their communities. Sitting here, we are not really interested in what is happening in Berlin or even in Chennai. Sitting here, you are more interested in what is happening in Khan Market area. I don't know what this area is all about, but here, that is what it is. So it's local. The other point, the other element is human interest stories. Youngsters too are interested in reading human interest stories, that is, stories with a humanitarian lens, no matter how long. And they are willing to pay for it. Now, human interest stories are not very easy to write. Of course, writing is another matter. You'll always have a sub-editor in a newspaper or someone to clean up the copy. That's a different matter. But the matter is also about getting information. That's basically the key thing as a journalist. You have to get information to put things together. It's unlike writing a news report where usually you have the inverted pyramid style, the 5 W's and the 1 H, what, when, where, who, why, how, and then it tapers down. End of story. But in a feature article, in a human interest story, you have to have all the qualities that a journalist has to have, which is a given. Which is what? You must have nose for news. You must have the ability to judge what is news among a morass of facts. You must be able to observe. You must have, you must be objective. You must have patience. You must listen. And you must be prepared for legwork. Googling will not make you a good journalist. It might guide you, but it will not. But you must have all that. But when you write stories that are humanitarian in nature, the so-called human interest stories, you often immerse yourself in the subject. And most of these stories are not so feel-good. They're not feel-good stories. They might be inspiring stories, but you get immersed in that. Okay? And frankly, this human interest element is nothing new. It's not that something new that these newspapers have, found. The human interest element has always been there for years. You will all remember Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest sold the maximum number of copies for years. I think it has folded up recently. But the Reader's Digest formula was one word: humanize. They would put up a story which is strung with people facts, people quotes, people anecdotes, people examples. They believed any concept, any idea you can write on, as long as you have people in it. You can write about a heart attack. They might even show you the heart with its, the chambers and the walls and the aorta and all that. But They will make sure that you have people, doctors, nurses, patients, and others speaking and talking and speaking to the reader via the article. Time magazine did it also. Time was famous for its anecdotes. I mean, there are stories that I tell journalists and journalism students, but this is not the podium for that. So this is nothing new. But while immersing oneself in the subject and the story, what happens to journalists? Very few think about it. A not so feel good story, and even when we are covering, let's say, disability, because that's the theme for this year, or disasters, since Mr. Ratnu is here, the journalist, and by journalist I mean not just the reporter, but the photographer, the photojournalist, even the sub-editor, because he or she might be cleaning copy and goes through this, the stuff, you are drawn emotionally. It is exhausting. It's not a news report, you're not attending a function, chief minister is there, take a picture, come file. No. You might have spent a week with people in a village, in a particular place, understanding the plight they've undergone. It exhausts you. There is mental stress in journalism. And this is something I wanted to sound out to both Mr. Omar and Mr. Ratnu, that I think we should, of course, the awards is fine, but I think if we can do at least one program a year focusing on the mental stress that journalists go through, even one program a year, it will help, because I have known journalists who have broken down, journalists who have quit jobs because they could not stand the pressure. You'll be surprised, journalism students, I mean, we have the Asian College of Journalism next door, where we are, the Press Institute. And this is not just about the ACJ. 30 to 40% of students who join news publishing houses, 30 to 40% will leave after 3 to 5 years because they cannot handle the pressure. And unlike in the earlier days, when we had editors and people to mentor you and guide you, I don't think you will find it. You will be lucky if you find a mentor. I mean, I found one. I was lucky to have a mentor during my years as a journalist. I don't know whether you will be so lucky. If you're lucky, fine. But even then, it's tough. So this is one thing I wanted to point out. The other thing is, I'm straying just a little away from the subject of disability, especially since Mr. Ratnu is here. Natural disasters are going to happen again and again. It may happen more often, and the severity may be worse. Exactly a month ago, today is 30th August, 30th July, what happened? Landslide in Wayanad. There's a excellent piece written by a senior journalist called Gopi Krishna Varya, who worked for the Hindu Business Line. He's the managing editor of Monga Bay, India. And we've carried his article also on our website, the Press Institute website. The headline is, we should never forget the landslide in Wayanad for our own good. But unfortunately, Wayanad remained on media platforms for a while. But of course, you can't blame the media for it. New things have happened. Now it's the HEMA committee report, and then it was Kolkata, then HEMA committee, then something else. But Wayanad is not seen as a kind of a developing story, or are journalists like you, I mean the youngsters who are going to win awards today and others, are you going to go to Wayanad again to see what happens to this, what is happening to the survivors? There is what is called disaster risk reduction, DRR. The media has a crucial role to play in helping reduce the effect of disasters. And there are various aspects to it. It is not just about saving lives or reporting about, lives having been lost and homes having been washed away and all that. We've seen all that. That's fine. I mean, you have to do it. But you have to go beyond that. As Mr. Ratnu will appreciate, disasters have, natural disasters, I'm confining this to only natural disasters, have various facets: political, economical, human rights, gender, health. Political, because people want the government to act and help them. Economical, because it's not just the cost of reconstruction, rebuilding. It's about lives lost, jobs lost, livelihoods lost. So you can imagine. Human rights, gender, of course, yes. Who are most affected? Women and children. Women the most. Why? Let's be honest about it. And this is India. I'm talking about India, okay? Worldwide, okay. I'm talking about India. Why women? Less educated, less employment, less livelihoods, less freedom, less of everything, less of food, less of nutrition. So what happens after a disaster to women in rural India? How many journalists are covering those stories? In whatever language. Is the infrastructure in place to take care of the survivors? Short term, long term? Are there hospitals with the infrastructure? Are journalists writing about it? Are you going to hospital nearby? In places near Wayanad and finding out whether the hospital has equipment? Are doctors visiting? Are there nurses? Are patients being admitted? There's a treasure of stories there. Well, you have to pitch it to your editor. Of course, it's the editor's call. So this is another area, Mr. Ratnu, I wanted to point out that these are several aspects that even, I wouldn't say senior, but even journalists, let's say seasoned journalists are not really giving a thought to. And we can't blame newspaper managements for it because, they all have their hands tight. But we, as let's say the Press Institute of India or the ICRC, who are associated together with these awards, and we're looking at the subject of, human interest stories, humanitarian issues, etc., I think we should also have one program that is focused on disaster management and how the media can play a crucial role in disaster reduction. These are the 2 points I want to make. Okay, that's all I have to say. So the evening belongs to all of you. Congratulations to all the award winners. Okay, the evening belongs to you. But the evening also belongs to all those who submitted entries and all those who might not have sent, because either they didn't have this kind of story, suiting this theme, or maybe some of them were not aware of it. But this evening is all about celebrating good journalism, because despite the odds, and especially in today's world with social media, fake news, misinformation, and of course, to top it all, artificial intelligence, y'all are doing a great job. And it is really good to know that good journalism, no matter what others may say, is still thriving and doing well. So more power to you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Shashi. Now, before I invite Mr. Kevidiraval Omar on stage, I would like to share a few words about him with all of you here tonight. Kevidiraval Omar is currently the head of the regional delegation for the ICRC in New Delhi, which covers India, Nepal, Bhutan, and the Maldives. Mr. Omar brings decades of operational and regional experience in humanitarian response. He has had a long career with the ICRC, having worked in conflict settings to those involved in humanitarian diplomacy, such as Yemen, Sierra Leone, Gaza, Nigeria, Iran, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and Kuwait, to name a few. Additionally, he has also years of experience in the nonprofit organization management industry in high-profile conflict areas, bringing skills related to negotiation and crisis management, emergency and security management, developing and redeveloping humanitarian operations, and humanitarian diplomacy. Without further ado, I invite Kevidiraval Omar for his inaugural address.
Dear Shri Rajendra Ratno, IAS Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, our chief guest this evening, Shashi Nair, Director and Editor, the Press Institute of India, our esteemed partner and co-host for this award, esteemed member of jury and panelist, Dr. Jai Sherdar, Adjunct Professor, ASEAN College of Journalism, Madhvi Lata, former national para swimming champion, inclusion advocate, author, and filmmaker, Hamanshu Vyas, author and ex-adjunct professor, photojournalism. Raki Ghosh, independent journalist and documentary filmmaker. Kavita Murlatran, journalist and communication professional, member of the media fraternity. All journalists who have enthusiastically participated in this year's competition. Ambassador of Ethiopia, diplomats, distinguished ladies and gentlemen present here, and those who are now connected with us virtually, dear friends and colleagues, good evening. On behalf of the regional delegation of the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, I'm pleased to warmly welcome you to this year's annual award for the best article and photograph on humanitarian subject. As you all know, the theme of this year edition is strengthening disability inclusion through stories with a humanitarian lens. This annual media award has a legacy of almost 20 plus years. Mr. Shashi's already mentioned about 18 years, where maybe we have a difference in counting, where the ICRC and the Press Institute of India, PII, have recognized and honored India media professionals who have painstakingly documented the story of humanitarian concerns. The ongoing partnership between ICRC and PII marks a milestone in our effort to support journalists across the country for the invaluable contribution to humanity. The theme of this year's awards also profoundly resonate with humanitarian work of the ICRC. Physical rehabilitation is a way of helping restoring the dignity of persons with a disability by enabling them to regain their mobility and play an active role in their society. Yet, restoring mobility is the first step in ensuring access to food, shelter, education, job, and income, and more generally, similar opportunities as other members of society. For the ICRC, promoting disability inclusive interpretations is an institutional priority in line with our organization visions of 2030 on disability. Vision 2030 is designed to make the ICRC more inclusive and accessible for a person with disabilities in its humanitarian programming, as an employer and as an advocate for a more inclusive legal and policy environment. I believe that disability inclusion representation in media, as we have seen through the submission this year, serves as a powerful conduit for societal change, embodying the essence of diversity and inclusion. This portrayal not only reflects the lived experience of persons with disability, but also shape public perception and attitudes. Through the lens of media, the narrative around disability can evolve from one of limitations to one of empowerment, capability, and resilience. Accurate and inclusive representation has the potential to dismantle stereotypes, combat stigma, and bring in about a societal change and foster a more inclusive and understanding social fabric. Therefore, we wholeheartedly appreciate that journalists and photographers have gone the extra mile, which Mr. Shashi already has mentioned earlier, to cover underreported stories and often put themselves at risk to reach out to communities that need to be heard. Insightful articles and powerful photographs often help bring pertinent topics to the forefront for better societal understanding, and the ICRC recognizes that media can play a crucial role in safeguarding human dignity for all. These awards are a small token of appreciation for your dedication to keeping people and needs at the center of your work and your settler contribution in humanitarian actions initiatives. We thank you, every journalist present at the ground zero, for their unwavering commitment to putting the spotlight on humanity's challenge. Your media stories certainly develop an awareness of humanitarian concerns, enabling response to humanitarian needs on the ground. Therefore, I would like to congratulate all participants and winners of this competition and thank you, our long-standing partner, the Press Institute of India, especially Director Shashinar, for his unwavering support. We look forward to sustaining this partnership and rewarding and acknowledging the exceptional work done by the media. After a while, we are looking forward to the panel discussion and hearing the thoughts of esteemed panelists and on the theme of this evening, strengthening disability and inclusion through the stories with humanitarian lens. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like also to mention that 2024 is even more special for ICRC, as it marks the 75th anniversary of 4 the 1941 Geneva Conventions and the 160th anniversary of the first Geneva Conventions. This year especially provides the ICRC with an opportunity to raise awareness along with partners in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement of the importance of international humanitarian law in contemporary armed conflict and its continued relevance and adaptability to the realities on the ground. The carefully curated photo exhibitions, as you see in the rooms and outside, you see here today has been designated to reflect the Geneva Conventions, genesis of and the fundamental guarantee. Each image tells story of the resilience, compassion, and enduring hope of the world, as well as upholding humanitarian in conflict. In conclusion, I offer my sincere gratitude to Shri Rajendra Ratno, IAS Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, for taking out his precious time to be with us and sharing his thought with all of us, as he did also last year. We have also had an enriching partnership with NIDM through our help course program. I would also like to thank esteemed jury and panelists who have generously been part of this year award. I also thank the PI and ICRC colleagues, especially Rohan, who has been on forefront for their hard work and efforts in successfully organizing these beautiful events this evening. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all once again for your presence here today. Thank you. So I would like to call our special guest to share with us some of his thoughts on this topic. Thank you.
Namaskar, good evening. Kadir Rovol, Omarji, Shashi Nairji, dignitaries from both these great organizations, Press Institute of India, as well as from the International Committee of Red Cross, all the delegates, and all those who have made to this award ceremony, and all the team that has worked behind the screen for making this event successful. And it is not an event, I know it's a long journey that culminates into such an event, and that invisible hard work. So all of you, and the sweat and hard work of the journalists who could make it to this award is a testimony of their dedication, and that reaffirms our faith into a responsible journalism. Last year or this year, whenever this invitation came, I think otherwise I'm little conservative on attending event, and my IPRO was wondering why I quickly jump onto this particular invitation. I think reasons are obvious. Last year I got to know this great partnership between Press Institute of India and the the International Committee of Red Cross. And that time also I had offered that NIDM will be very happy to take forward a lasting partnership with you. And today Shashi Nair Saab has appealed that there should be one course a year. But I can say that we can have more than one. And surely we already have started working on how to engage with, and that was the reason that when I joined there was no vertical in NIDM for media and journalism. We have got a person who has experience as a faculty in media journalism, and this whole idea is to see that how we can engage with and mainstream the responsibility during disasters, all phases of disaster, how the journalist and media can make a difference. And therefore it is very important, as per the framework of Sendai framework as well as PM's 10-point agenda, that we need to mainstream DRR. It cannot remain a MHA's objective. It cannot remain NDMA or NIDM's objective. It has to be mainstream. The climate change and disaster vulnerabilities, as rightly said by Nair Saab, that disasters are going to increase more and more, and there is no doubt about that. We have seen events like GLOF, 2 events in 2023 in Sikkim as well as in Uttarakhand. We have seen Wayanad, an unprecedented landslide this scale and magnitude in Western Ghats, which was not heard of. So those who were dismissive about climate change and apprehensive that it's a concoction of the media and intellectuals and academia, I think there is no longer any debate on that subject, and we should not waste our time and energy into discussing or debating that. I think it is a time to see that yes, this is a reality, and in that context, uh, the vulnerabilities, hazards are going to be there. More and more hazards will be there. Intensity and severity will increase. The frequency will increase. But how we can minimize the risk, as Mr. Nair has said, that how the disaster risk can be reduced, how a hazard can be either prevented from turning into a disaster, or at least its intensity of the disaster can be reduced. And what is a disaster risk? Disaster risk is basically it's the intensity of the hazard when it gets multiplied with the exposure and vulnerability of the people. It gets more and more. So hazard we can't prevent, but can we reduce the vulnerability of the people? Can we reduce the exposure of the people to the disaster events? And the denominator is capacity. Can we build the capacity, and particularly of the last mile, those people who are not in the main stream of the society, those who are at the margin of the society, how we can take out the messages to them. And in all these three components of disaster risk reduction, media plays a very, very heavy role. And when we talk about vulnerability reduction, whose vulnerability? There are people who are already vulnerable in normal times. Every day is a struggle, whether they are the disabled, people with disability, or elderly, senior citizens, the transgenders, women, the migrant laborers, and other people who are at the margin of the society. So, how their vulnerability can be reduced? I think this responsible journalism, these responsible stories, when you bring them out, this plays a huge role in reducing vulnerability, also in reducing exposure to the disasters. Because earlier, it used to, in the same disaster, there used to be, thousands of people used to die. 1998, there was a cyclone in Kutch region of Gujarat, and almost 3,500 to 5,000 people died in that. The same intensity cyclone Biparjoy that had come in the same area landfall, and there was no reported casualty there. And it government cannot take the entire credit for that. Yes, there was a good leadership, there was good coordination, but it is a long history behind that how society and different elements have come together to work for that. In addition to a better, build back better program post earthquake, it was the media that played a great role. You have taken the message to the last mile there, to the remotest of the villages, that there is a cyclone landfall coming, this intensity, and that helped in evacuating the people and thereby reducing their exposure. Those who are in the huts or other thing, they were evacuated from there. They were taken to safe shelters, and thousands of lives were saved. So these, because lives are saved, this may not sometime make a big story, because if there is a, but this was the real hard work of the journalists, the media, print as well as social media, electronic media. So point I'm trying to drive is that there's a huge scope. I come every time I reaffirm my faith into journalism and media when I meet the youngsters here who bring out the brilliant work. And that pessimism, that thought that, labeling the entire media, I think we should not go into that kind of thing. You are the rays of hope. It is not honoring a single person that you got an award for your this thing. You have inspired many people like you, young journalists, who may come forward to do a responsible reporting. Also like to share with the August gathering that NIDM is working dedicatedly with dedication for a very inclusive disaster risk reduction capacity building programs. The last year we had an event specifically dedicated on 13th October for inclusive DRR. We had very prominent people on the panel, and one icon who came and attended was Ira Singhal, who symbolizes the who is an activist within IAS, who has fought the entire adverse circumstances and came after a lot of struggle into, because disabled people were not permitted to join the service and there were various barriers, and the other all other services did not permit, except IAS others did not permit. So she decided, okay, if I top IAS, what? And you'll be surprised that this girl, she worked hard and she was all India topper in the most, one of the toughest competition in India, and she has exemplified, and she has, so these stories of hope. So we want to always try to bring that individuals can be catalysts of change everywhere, and all the more important in the category of people with a disability. We have to also highlight those achievers and those who have made a difference in their life, so that it there are significant research. There's a study by Hoffman in 2011 which says that one of the major ways by we can bring about an attitudinal change at a community at large is exemplifying people or bringing about the stories on front. So that makes a huge difference in removing the stereotypes, for changing the attitude and behavior of the people at large. And I think media platforms are one great way by which we can leverage this strength, their strength, and ensure that a digital inclusion and accessibility is ensured. And the Digital Inclusion and Accessibility Report of 2022 also indicates that digital storytelling can reach millions and has a significant impact on public attitude and policy. I don't know how many of you seen Crip Camp. I think quite a few of you would have seen a Disability Revolution, a small movie that came in 2020 about a group of teenagers who go for a camping, and the entire narrative is built around that. There's a huge impact on minimizing, if not totally, removing the stereotypes. It really changes attitude of the people, the perception of the people, and the way they look at this particular category. So we have to make a society, and when I tell this, it is not a narrative, it is not in abstract, but I very strongly believe, and all the more in the current time, last 2 months, when I have a mother who's 92 years and she's wheelchair bound, and I find everywhere, that how the barriers they affect the movement, and I'm sure that we all together can make a more inclusive society. And I hope that this event, I can assure Shashi Nair Sahab that this event will not remain an event. We get inspired every time we come to this forum, and we will make this as a journey starting today, and not one, at least we'll have two programs. We have our in the long list of the assignments of Nazia, this is my IPRO, this also gets that we are in the process of developing module, and surely with your partnership with you, we will be able to, NIDM will be able to bear all the costs of this program, and you'll be helping us to nominate or guide us as to how to go about, whether we target the students of journalism, or whether we should, because practicing journalism, as you said, they are all the time running, and I don't think they can 3 to 5 days getting time may be difficult. We'll be very happy if they can make, but surely I think faculty development programs, as well as reaching out to the young journalists, that can be one of the ways. I still remember that when I was collector in Kadalur and Kanyakumari, Kadalur particularly, Asian School of Journalism students used to come quite often there. So I think I do not want to stand between you and the awards, because I know that people have not come to listen to me particularly. They have come to receive the award and to compliment and congratulate their colleagues. So my best wishes, and I once again want to tell that National Institute of Disaster Management, which is one of the oldest initiative in the globally, because 1994 was the Yokohama conference, which was the first global event on disaster risk reduction. And 1995, India formed a National Center for Disaster Management in Ministry of Agriculture, which eventually became National Institute of Disaster Management. We are committed for a inclusive disaster risk reduction capacity building of the nation. We have rolled out this year the Braille for the visually challenged people, which is the first initiative of any national institute. We are also working on other disability, and I'm sure that we'll be able to make not only during disaster but at the normal times a more inclusive, more barrier free environment for everyone. And all of you, those who have made to this award, I congratulate them, compliment them. Keep up your good, responsible journalism. And I also compliment all those who had worked hard and put their stories and their entries, whether photojournalists or the print journalists. So with that, once again, I compliment the two great organizations and all the awardees. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rajendra Ratnuji. I would like to share a few words about Rajendra Ratnuji with all of you here today about his distinguished career. Shri Rajendra Ratnu is an IAS officer of the 2001 batch of the Tamil Nadu cadre. He's presently serving as Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, the Government of India. He has effectively steered NIDM for furthering cooperation in humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and climate change adaptation. Before joining the NIDM, he was working as Joint Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the Government of India, where he was looking after international coordination with European countries, including India's participation in the World Economic Forum in Davos, National Industrial Corridor Program, and India International Convention Center. Shri Rajendra Ratnu was awarded with the Prime Minister's National Award for effective implementation of the NREGS works as well. He was recognized as the best collector for effective public grievance redressal in his district, for which he won the Chief Minister's Award twice. He has also been conferred the Yuva Ratna by the Governor of Rajasthan and Professional Efficiency Award by Rotary International. Sir, I thank you again on behalf of all of us for giving us the encouragement by so generously agreeing to be part of these awards for 2 consecutive years, and also Nazia ji for making this entire process so seamless and the support that you have provided. I would now request you to please stay on stage and Mr. Kedir Awal Omar to kindly felicitate our esteemed guest this evening with a small token of appreciation. Please felicitate our partner, Shashi Nayyar ji. Thank you so much. I would request you all to please join us in the audience as we now move to the panel discussion, the second part of our program for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready for the next session in our evening this night, I would like to apologize for running a little behind schedule, but we'll of course try to make up time as we go along. And because just in prior to the panel discussions and the proceedings of it, I would request you all to please put your phones on silent, if you may. Thank you. Let me start by inviting our moderator for this evening, Dr. Jaya Sridhar, Adjunct Professor, Asian College of Journalism. Very quickly, Dr. Jaya Sridhar is a medical doctor and an award-winning health journalist whose area of interest is public health journalism with a focus on human rights and health governance. Welcome, Jayaji. Our next panelist for the discussion this evening is Madhavi Lataji, former national para-swimming champion, inclusion advocate, author, and filmmaker. Madhavi Lata is an associate vice president in an MNC in the area of diversity and inclusion at global level, mental health first aider, a former national para-swimming champion, the founder general secretary of the Paralympic Swimming Association of Tamil Nadu, and the founder president of the Wheelchair Basketball Federation of India. We welcome Madhavi ji on stage, please. On to our next panelist for this evening, Mr. Himanshu Vyas, author and ex-adjunct professor of photojournalism. Himanshu Vyas has served for over 2 decades at Hindustan Times newspaper as chief photographer in multimedia, and then as an adjunct professor in photojournalism at Haridev Joshi University of Journalism and Mass Communication in Jaipur. Welcome, Himanshu ji. Our next panelist for this evening is Ms. Rakhi Ghosh, independent journalist and documentary filmmaker. As an independent journalist, Rakhi Ghosh contributes to some national web portals on the issue of health, education, migration, climate change, food security, forest rights, and gender. Besides, she has also worked on a few documentation and research projects and study reports, and is a visiting faculty at several media institutes as well. Please join me in welcoming her on stage. Now, on to our last distinguished panelist for this evening, Kavita Muralitharan, journalist and communication professional. Kavita ji is a seasoned bilingual journalist from Tamil Nadu with a rich experience of 25 years covering diverse topics ranging from politics to culture and cinema. Please. With that, I hand over the floor to Jaya ji, our moderator for this evening's discussion.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to this lovely evening. We've had a great start, but I do know that we're running a bit behind time. So let me just start by according all due appreciation to the ICRC and the PII for this absolutely laudable initiative, which is sustained over the past several years to acknowledge and recognize outstanding journalism on humanitarian concerns and issues. God knows we journalists need the encouragement. We're very grateful that humanitarian reporting has been accorded the status that it deserves and is getting some lifeblood from this initiative year after year. Offering a great source of hope and encouragement for journalists over the years. So I had spent some time trying to remember the intros of everybody, so I could do it without a piece of paper, but I see Rohan has done the intros for me. But I must add that we do have multiple award winners on stage. Himanshu has, apart from the PII-ICRC award, he's also a 2-time recipient of the Ramnath Goenka Awards for Best Photography, for Best Press Photography. And he is reputed for bringing a poetic frame to his pictures, and that must be coming from his internationally recognized haiku writing. He writes haiku poems, and he also makes short films, and one of his films won the award for the best theme at the Rajasthan International Film Festival recently. And he's also writing for children, which I think is an absolutely wonderful thing. Absolutely, it's a gift. So Himanshu, welcome. Kavita is also a PII-ICRC award winner, as Shashi mentioned, and engaged in one of the most important and delicate tasks that face creative people today, which is like translation. It's a absolutely very, very important vocation in a country where only a small proportion of the population accesses the English media, and a huge lot of us out there viscerally vibe only with the local language media, both culturally and are more inclined to, as Shashi pointed out, listen to local news in the local language with the local dialect, using local cultural idioms and metaphors. The work of translating or uniting news from across regions and from different perspectives and writers, making that reachable to other audiences, that's absolutely a great calling. So pleased to have Kavita on this panel. Rakhi Ghosh from Odisha is also a multiple award winner. She has won the UN Ladli Media Award thrice for gender sensitive reporting, as well as the PII-ICRC Award, as well as the Statesman Award for rural reporting. Again, another sort of an invisibilized issue. I think for some time Sainath had put it on the national map, but then now, apart from the People's Archive of Rural India, rural reporting still hasn't managed to sort of recover, and it does need to. And of course, we've heard about Madhavi Lata, and not only is she a former national para-swimming champion, she's also the founder and general secretary of the Paralympic Swimming Association of Tamil Nadu, as well as the founder and president of the Wheelchair Basketball Federation of India. So we're very privileged to have you here, Madhavi. And besides that, she's a storyteller, author, and filmmaker. So I think we have a great panel here. And in the interest of time, we're just going to dive straight into this whole business of inclusion. And that's the elephant in the room, isn't it? So when we received all the entries, to judge, one of the first things that I was looking for, and I'm sure I speak for my fellow jury members, we were looking for a lot of reporting from humanitarian contexts, whether it's natural or man-made disasters, or also humanitarian context by virtue of sheer intensification and chronic deprivation, that prevails in the inner cities or, chronic displaced communities and so on. So how would a visually impaired adolescent girl, for instance, both of whose parents are admitted into the ICU during a COVID pandemic and who's alone by herself without relatives to take care of her, would she be able to ward off sexual predators, or how would she get around, and what's the protection for her during a time of outbreak? The IFRC has come out with very good guidelines on this, but we were looking for articles like that. So what happens during Wayanad? What happened to people with disability? What happens when your wheelchair gets crushed under a falling building during an earthquake? Where are those stories? So I think, should we journalists be going out looking for those stories? I don't think we do. We just walk into these places and then do the mid-shot reporting or the first thing that strikes our eye. But Himanshu is going to talk a little bit more about how we can see the world with different eyes and capture it differently for our audiences. But these were the things that I think this is a conscious choice that journalists make, not to be exclusionary simply because it's not there at the top of our minds. So to set the ball rolling, I wanted to bring in this aspect, but I think I'll turn to Madhavi Lata to start with, to go a little bit deeper into this question of inclusion. What do we mean by that? And what kind of a different mind frame do we as journalists and storytellers need to develop? What should we be looking out for if we're going to give disability the due place it deserves in storytelling? So over to you, Madhavi.
So she wrote an article, "Look, I Can Swim," in Hindu. You can't believe how many people approached me after seeing that article. Madhvi, how to start this hydrotherapy? My mom wants, or my sister wants. Like that, many people approached me, and that laid the foundation for our Paralympic Swimming Association of Tamil Nadu. The people who approached us, among that, whoever is like-minded people, we started that association. So just I would like to share this story with you all because it shows the power of journalism. So how many people got benefited in Tamil Nadu when we started that initiative? So then I would like to share some other experiences also, how we can promote more inclusion in the society being a journalist. While writing articles, we need to think about whether we are using the language in a proper way, because many times people will see a person sitting in a wheelchair as a patient, uh, and wheelchair as a symbol of weakness or dependence. So while writing in journalism, you can change that perspective. So people sitting in wheelchairs, wheelchair is nothing but a means of conveyance. We are using scooter, we are using car. Are we saying that they are confined to scooter, or they are confined to only a car? We are not using that. But why we are using that for wheelchair? So this type of thing, when we are writing, we need to take care so that society will, their perception towards persons with disabilities will be changed with your writings. And another thing is this ethical considerations. I would like to speak about that also. Sometimes, out of over enthusiasm, we will try to show that either photography or journalism, some things which I may not like to be portrayed in that way, in a sympathetic or pity or like that. Sometimes people will try to. I had so many media interviews. I gave interviews at that time. Some are it's they like, "Look, I can swim." They wrote very well what I was trying to tell. Some people changed what I told, because they wrote something, because they were thinking like I could not go to college due to lack of infrastructure facilities. When I told that reporter, he told like her friends didn't support her. That's why she could not go to college. After seeing that, my friends called and asked, Madhavi, what is this? So when I asked with him, he told like, Madam, if I write like that, it will be more uh, like a sympathetic and people will like. So sometimes it happens. So I sincerely feel it is better to discuss with whom you are interviewing, telling these type of things I am going to cover. Is this conveying your views properly or not? So these are some things that I would like to share, and I would like to hear from our other colleagues, our members.
Maybe I can turn, instead of going in a row, maybe I can turn to Kavita to start with, and then we can go to Himanshu. Thank you, Madhavi.
Thank you. I think Madhavi, she really started it well. But when we speak about inclusion, I also want to speak about the local media, because we've been talking about journalism, media, and I know entries. This particular event is for English journalists, but I think we need to speak about regional languages, and I have been very disappointed by the way Tamil media has been covering disability issues. I think it's, as a journalist, I think it's a very bad thing to do. One recent example, if I may say, was in the aftermath of the elections, recent elections, there was this, where do we start? How do we kind of tell people on social media that we need to be inclusive? We need to think from the point of view of a person with disability. And, there was this meme which showed the prime minister holding crutches, and both the crutches were like two political leaders of other parties. It was very insensitive. And a Tamil newspaper, Tamil magazine, reproduced the entire meme as a cover image. That's, from the social media, it came to the cover of a very popular Tamil magazine. So where do we start? How do I go and tell people on social media that this is not right and this is not how it should be done? And then how do we also speak to traditional media saying that, this kind of hurts a very important, it comes as a very hurtful thing for a group of people, and they need to be sensitive. It's been a long while to change many things. Even as a journalist, I've seen how, at least in Tamil, there are certain terms that we don't use. We don't use honor killings any longer in Tamil. We've started using it as caste motivated killings made of arrogance. But it took some time to do. There is this very derogatory term for rape in Tamil, which puts the onus on women. Most of the newspapers, most of the media have stopped using it. They've used a different, pretty decent terms. So I think a conscious effort should be made to kind of bring about, to sensitize the journalists, sensitize people who are active on social media also, and we need to find out ways to do it, about the language that needs to be used. And there needs to be a political correctness in this, and there needs to be a political will also to do this, because we already have, in Tamil Nadu, we have glossary for LGBTQ communities. And there is there is glossary on gender neutral terms. So maybe we should think of bringing out a glossary for this issue and see how it can be done.
I think those are great points. It's always been a long-standing issue, this sort of gulf between the English language media and the local languages, which actually have a far more greater ability and power to connect with people at the grassroots. So I think those are great points from both Madhavi and Kavita, and I'll quickly pass on to Himanshu right now to talk about how do you look at this visually in terms of inclusion.
Thank you, Jaya, and thank you, everyone. It's such an honor and an humbling experience to be here. As a photojournalist and a winner of the award, and now as part of a jury in talking about this whole process, it's really humbled me a lot. And I'll quickly go to some very practical points in looking at this issue about inclusion. I have two things in my mind. As a photojournalist who was served for about 2 decades behind the camera, looking at the world through the viewfinder. One is that there should be more of those pictures in our newspapers. first thing. And second is the mindful use of those pictures, or the a mindful person behind the viewfinder. That would, I'll come to that point in detail later. By more, I mean like if a photojournalist goes out for an assignment, could it be a Independence Day, it can be a Republic Day event, could be some festival. They can consciously look for, instead of just simple, I mean, something which is appealing like a cliché, or it appeals to the news editor or the people, or more colorful. They can consciously look for people with disabilities, or something which they can, I mean, at such events. Because I remember one such incident in which happened during my photojournalistic career. It was a Republic Day event, and I had covered the event, and I was leaving the stadium. All the salutes and parades and everything had happened, and as usual, I didn't put my camera in my bag. It was still dangling from my neck, and I was going towards the parking lot, and slowly everyone was leaving. And because it's, as it is said, that best pictures often happen before or after the event, because event is an event, we know, but you get the photojournalistic picture before or after the event. So I was quite far in the, and it was very dusty, and as Rajasthan's summers, you know what the kind of heat we have there, and it was very hot charcoal road which was separating the stadium and the parking lot. And I was very far going towards my bike, and suddenly I saw a person with disability kind of moving towards his wheelchair, and there was no one to assist him. And I thought that should I go towards him, and I was about 100 or 150 meters away, quite far away, looking at him, and it was all very, I mean, difficult to cross that terrain. So I was just thinking, and suddenly I saw two official vehicles with all the tricolors and on them, and kind of they had left their VIPs and going towards the motor garage. They were leaving the stadium also, so only the driver and the officials were there. So I thought, okay, so they are coming and they would perhaps help him. And it was like I had the camera in my hand, and I saw that man slowly moving towards that warm charcoal street. It was, I mean, blistering, and the jeeps approaching, and I thought, okay, so now they were going to help him. And I thought, okay, let's look it through the viewfinder now. I'll get a good picture, because it was around 100 meters. I put on my zoom lens, 200 zoom lens, and something unexpected happened. The guy who was on the street had to wait there, and the jeeps passed by with the tricolors, with all the official paraphernalia on both the jeeps. And that was a different picture that I got there. And we had a wonderful, brave editor who was, I mean, he splashed that picture on the front page of next day of the Republic Day parade, of two official jeeps not stopping for a person. And he was right in the middle of the street there, and those jeeps passing by. So I believe that such mindful usage, and of course all the things followed next day. For coming week, there were a lot of letters and phone calls going back and forth, and apologies, and those things kept on happening. But I still have that picture with me, and so I believe that more usage like that, it could have been a flag hosting picture or an award ceremony picture, but one has to be on lookout and constantly aware about these things, and be a little mindful. I'll come to this second point, mindful aspect of a photojournalist. That is like, I recall a World Press Photo organization which has the one of the best photojournalism competition in the world. So its jury in 2008 couldn't award very important events of the world as the best pictures of the competition. And the reason they gave was that although the issues were great, but they were not photographed in a manner that they deserved it. So again, if you are covering an issue, a photojournalist has to be very thoughtful, very mindful, and aware of the visual language that they are employing in communicating that issue.
Thank you, Himanshu. I think that was a very vivid story. And it was not only a mixture of being there at a serendipitous moment, but you were preparing to sort of capture it or to document it. So there was a mix of, it was already there in you to sort of capitalize on that moment. So that was absolutely great story. And I turn now to Rakhi Ghosh for your thoughts on inclusivity and making exclusionary choices. And I know you did the opposite by launching recently a YouTube sort of a channel called storiesodisha.com that seeks to showcase stories from Odisha's rural hinterland that are underreported in the mainstream media. So your own personal sort of commitment to this issue comes through. So how do you view what the media is currently doing in terms of inclusivity and issues related to disability and in a humanitarian context?
Thank you, everyone. For me, inclusivity means like bringing these voiceless into your stories, or bringing the voices of these voiceless in your stories, because we all are long form story writers. And when we do stories, at least it should not confine to men only, and you should write from a gender lens. And when you are covering women, at least one part of it will come the PWDs also, the persons with disability. So I have seen like stories of inspiration, or persons with a disability. Their inspiring stories are coming up, but you should also write the policy gaps. I just want to highlight 2-3 things. I did one story on school closure. That's because being a rural reporter, I went to Raigada. That's a very rural place, and it's a national government decision, and our state government was also doing school closing down schools. And what I found is, when that primary school was closed down, the very first thing, like boys can cross one stream and attend another school which is 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers away, but girls and two children with special needs, they were dropped out. Why? Because their parents were lifting them and taking them to school. But what happened when the school was closed and these children were left from, or they were stopped going to school? And not only their education, the other side also, the nutrition they were getting from the MDM, midday meal, that was also stopped. So being a journalist, when you are going to the rural areas or doing urban stories, always don't confine that, just open your mind and try to find out who are also, facing difficulties. So you can find out that special needs children are also facing difficulties. The second thing I want to highlight about the disaster. When we do stories on disaster, for example, children were, people are taking to any cyclone shelter. And we are going to cover, we are finding that men are there, women are there, they are using toilets. But those who are, PWDs or persons with disability, are there any toilets for them? At least try to find out. And who people who are lifting them to cyclone shelters, are they really trained to take them? At least take one sound bites of those people, or one paragraph you can keep in your story. So finally, we all are storytellers, like, whether we are a print journalist, television journalist, or a photo journalist, or a documentary filmmaker. We all are storytellers, but the thing is how we are telling our story, or how differently we are telling our story. So how your story will be different when you will join these dots. So try to find out, to bring all these people in your story, then your story will be inclusive.
Thank you, Raki, again. This is again calling for a shift in the mindset. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons why issues and stories of people with disability often don't get reported as much, or they're practically invisibilized in the media, could also be because of lack of data, right? We don't see that much of data or studies or research.
Few years ago, I knew that leprosy was sometimes classified as disability, and there are leper colonies in Tamil Nadu where outside of the city, I think there are about 70 colonies where people affected by leprosy stay separately. And I visited a couple of such colonies near Chengalpet and Coimbatore. And it was very sad because nobody talks about these issues. Even among journalists, I don't know how many people knew that leprosy is sometimes a disability. So I think journalists should also kind of equip themselves with more knowledge about these issues before they actually go out reporting. And more importantly, we speak about representation, we speak about inclusivity, we also think about how to bring people with disabilities into the newsrooms so they can tell their own stories, and that is something that needs to be consciously done.
What is the kind of representation we are seeing? Like, how many journalists are we seeing with some form of disability or who are sitting in positions of decision?
As far as I knew, I think Hindu has only one person in Chennai, but otherwise I've never seen people with disabilities in newsrooms, and that's really sad. And it's not being talked about also. I mean, it's very important to speak about gender representation in newsrooms, about caste representation in newsrooms. It's very, very important. I completely stand by those things, and I've spoken about these representations, but I also feel guilty that I've never spoken about representation for people with disabilities in newsrooms. That needs to be spoken about more and more now, I think.
Absolutely. I recollect Mr. Ramakrishnan of Doordarshan long time ago. Yeah. Who, he was and it was absolutely normal. You looked forward to his stories, absolutely part of the scene, just like anybody else. So I think that's a really important point. So coming back to information about disability and issues, particularly in humanitarian contexts, I mean, I'm sure Mr. Rajendra shop will come out with more data on this, or a little bit more training and sensitization for journalists. But we really need to also, I think, have a Rolodex of scientists, social scientists who are working on this issue, frontline responders like yourself, or people with lived experiences, a speakers bureau perhaps of people with disability we need something to sort of generate a stream of information to flow to the media, so that there can be a better sort of chance for greater visibilization of this issue, like it has happened for, I mean, if you think back to 5 years ago, how many stories did we see across the gender spectrum, for instance? But now they're so visible. You see these Rainbow Day parades, you see their issues being highlighted and so on. It's also because of a lot of advocacy from their side. So I just quickly wanted to talk about advocacy before I come back to Himanshu on this. But you, Madhvi, you're an inclusivity advocate. That's what you identify yourself as. And how do you see your role doing that?
We have been trying to, right now actually I'm working in this media and entertainment industry, how we can bring our persons with disabilities in those industries. So for we have started arranging various courses in partnership with the national institutes related to that. So here I would like to share, like when we are writing, persons with disabilities, either journalists, when they are writing, they are trying to show them as great inspirational people, or otherwise writing very sympathetic pity condition or poor people, like that. These two types of extreme things. Once upon a time I used to feel very happy if somebody tells you are a great inspiration or something like that. But now slowly after seeing various things, now I am thinking, why should I have lot of resilience? People will say that she has a lot of resilience, but why persons with disabilities need to have that much resilience? Why society needs to give them all the challenges, and if anybody overcome that, we are appreciating. But how we can make, why should a person with a disability is facing problem to go to a college? Why the colleges are not inclusive? Why the organizations are not recruiting many persons with disabilities? Why they are not giving them career growth opportunities? why all these things are happening. And we are appreciating if any XYZ, some people, if they are able to overcome all these challenges, we are appreciating. But is this the correct way? We should think about the problems, why they are facing these problems, how can we bring that change in the society. We need to think in that aspect. And right now, unfortunately, I am so sorry to tell that many times when I go for these media interviews, people will try to get some sad story from my this one. Recently when I went for one TV interview, also that lady said, we would like to hear, no, no, not all these things. When I am trying to discuss about the challenges, what we are doing, no, no, Madhvi, we would like to hear your personal story, where you face a problem to go to school, or this one, that one. So that sympathetic way we present. So that change we need to bring in all our journalists. Really, if you write strong, powerful articles, I saw that impact. I saw both sides. Some powerful articles helped us a lot in many ways, and some things I got scoldings from people because I told something and they wrote something else. Whatever example I shared. So that is the most important thing. And you are from ACJ. We need to work on how can we promote this inclusive language. Uh, Intentions are good. The journalists' intentions are good, but when they are writing, the words they are using, it's really the moment we, even in our articles also, we saw when we are judging those articles, we saw some of the words are like it's very difficult to accept being a person with a disability. So we need to, I know it's because of lack of awareness. We need to sensitize the journalists in this aspect. So long way to go, but with all our efforts, I am ready to support you people in all these efforts.
That's absolutely
So
wonderful.
together we all can make change.
I think a lot of sensitization and training programs for journalists and mainstreaming reporting on disability courses within the journalism training institutions are definitely going to help. I'm going to quickly just flag one point that Madhvi Lata raised, which is creating an environment, a living environment which is conducive for people with disabilities. So it doesn't call on greater effort to negotiate that living environment, and it should be naturally a part of it with changing urban landscapes and changing rural scapes. And also post disaster in Wayanad or in Gujarat or wherever something happens. I think now some donor agencies are saying, as part of the reconstruction effort, you have to reconstruct the fallen building, which is make it disability friendly, otherwise we won't give you the money. So there are ways in which just like some European importers of cloth from our Tirupur in Tamil Nadu said, unless you employ people with HIV in the factories, we are not going to buy your fabric. So if there are economic checks and balances that donor organizations, builders, can give to builders, when you reconstruct after a disaster, make sure that it's conducive for people with disability to negotiate. That's definitely one of the things. I think it's already there in the language of the IFRC and the ICRC. But I wanted to pass this on to Himanshu to talk about, again, inclusive environments and how somebody who's trying to tell the story visually, what can they do?
Thank you, Jaya. I'll try to keep it brief this time. The story was long.
Please, you can keep it as long as you want.
One thing is that we're talking about that humanitarian lens. So whenever we see at some issue or thing to cover, it's not that just lens as a metaphor. I mean, it's actually the actual lens, the eye, the lens in your eye, that has to be very compassionate. That's what I have found. The lens which is right here, through which we look at the world, that has to be absolutely very empathetic. And I think I learned during this jury process from Madhvi. A lot of it was it was like a classroom for me, all those Zoom meetings, and I mean pondering and talk over the various stories and pictures. So, and I would also like to say that something about the visual language, how we communicate, a very simple thing, a lot of pictures, very good pictures of beautiful issues. I mean, they just couldn't be taken because they were shot from a standing perspective. I mean, someone is sitting on floor, the photographer has to get down on his knees. If it's a child, if it's an old person with disability, the photographer has to go down. And if it's that perspective, it loses out. It's such a simple thing as that. And that comes from empathy. It's a reflex. It can't be taught in a classroom that if you are clicking a person with disability, you have to go down on your knees. It should happen as a human reflex. I remember very early in my college days when I clicked a picture of some astrologer or someone with a parrot but sitting on a roadside in Jodhpur, and he had just taken off his prosthesis, and he was sitting here and the prosthesis was standing on the pavement. I still remember that picture got kind of published in a local newspaper, but I remember that I kneeled down on the road to take that picture. And I hadn't taken any journalism class for that or any photography class for that. So that such simple things matter. And that's the humanitarian lens that we are, talking about. And also, secondly, I would, like Professor Goswami is here from IIMC, and he has brought his students also here. So I believe that it's the best class that they can have today or in this session about this whole discussion. And I believe that that empathy, why poetry is not taught in journalism, why literature is not taught in journalism. These are the subjects which can, really melt hearts of people, and they reflect in writing. They reflect when you look through a viewfinder. And we have to do a lot of work on ourselves before it, can be visible in newspapers or in as an inclusive newspaper environment.
Absolutely. I welcome any of the co-panelists to react to what Himanshu is saying, but you reminded me of Sainath saying when the ACG students wanted to go out and report on the MNREGA scheme, he said, sure, come, let's all go into the sun, each take a crowbar and start digging to know what it feels like to dig ditches, meaninglessly for some 6 hours at a stretch under the sun just to get that little bit of money from the government scheme. So this is more what you're talking about is a sort of an immersive approach and an immersive attitude. And I don't know how many of the journalists and students sitting in this room have actually gone out and spent a day with someone who has a disability or who has gone into a school, for the visually impaired, and just spent how the teachers teach or sat with the students and talked to them and looked at the world through their unseeing eyes. So I think, again, this sort of transformative process that has to happen as part of our personal spiritual growth, which is going to enhance our vision about how we report on these issues, has to come from absolute first-line experience and immersion. So, Raki, over to you.
Something like disability is completely, a kind of invisible thing in families, in our community, in our society, in policies, and of course in media. So, being a journalist, what I have seen is when we are writing about poor and marginalized, you don't have to be poor. Like, you should have a heart for it. So when you are writing completely, a kind of not sympathetic, rather more empathetic way you have to write, and you have to understand them, and some kind of sensitivity you have to develop and write about them. Like, you being a journalist, write about all the people in the society, and then only your story will be, will come into a standard.
Thanks. I know that we are drawing to the end of our time on this panel, but I just wanted to pass the mic around to do the usual cliched thing that most moderators do, which is to ask each panelist to share any 2 or 3 tips that they might have for young journalists out there who are wanting to take a serious look at the issue of disability, particularly in humanitarian context. Hopefully, we'll see more reporting in that direction. But any volunteers? Someone wants the mic first?
Would like to just reiterate every word of he said. Whatever subject, and it's I think it applies more to disability, is to kind of have an empathetic approach. And journalism, schools doesn't teach you, but the field, people around you, the community is definitely going to teach you that.
One example I will tell. Suppose if the stage doesn't have ramp, if I am not able to come here, what will you say? You may say Madhavi is a wheelchair user, That's why she can't come onto the stage. That means issue is with me. But actually it is other way around. The stage doesn't have a ramp. So stage is not inclusive. That is why I am not able to come here. So if you remember this point, then all the issues you can think in another angle, and I hope it will help.
Disabled people are invisible, so try to make them visible, more visible in your stories.
I just quote one line from Henry Carter Bresso, the father of photojournalism, whom we all follow, almost every photographer. He said that a photojournalist has to align his eye, his head, and his heart. All three in one line, then only you can take a picture. And you should be kind of drawn towards your subject. You are not drawn towards the award or the story or what the editor is going to like or how it's going to appear. I remember whenever I've taken a picture, it has been like a pull from the subject, pull from the world. It's not been the pull from the headline or pull from the award. So always keep in mind, I mean, you should be pulled towards the world. It's waiting for you to look at it. Thank you.
So as is evident, I mean, this is it was such a pleasure to work with this jury and quite a different experience this year because there's so much of empathy and passion that informs every one of the conversations they had and the way they approached the stories. So I think that that's really the biggest lesson about changing ourselves as human beings and growing spiritually and learning to look at the world with different eyes. That's one of the biggest takeaways from this. And I'll add some grounding to this to say that we need research, we need good science to inform our reporting, we need data, we need access to policymakers like yourself, sir, Mr. Rajendran, to understand how the government is approaching the issue and what can be done at various levels, right from the rural level all the way up to the central level. And who should journalists access if they wanted to do a story on disability and how government policies are helping people with disability at various levels. Who is the points person at the various, whether at the taluk or the district level? Is there we know that if we want data on TB, we know who to go to. If it's a vector-borne disease, yes, we do. Even mental professionals, we know. But who is it who's dealing with this? Who is the person to reach out to? Is it not big enough that there are these reference points across the country, or what's happening? So unless these things happen, it's going to remain, I think, largely invisible. While we can bring a lot of passion and empathy to our reporting, we also need that to be, sort of twinned with good science, good data, sound policies, and we want to be able to audit those policies and hold power to account. So I think accountability mixed with passion and good data, and that unique flavor which only I think each of us can bring as journalists, our own unique sort of spiritual edge to our reporting. I think that's really important. And as Shashi was pointing out, this is becoming even more important in an age where we are becoming so insensitive to each other, I think. I don't know whether it's my personal perception, but we need more and more visual stimulation, I think, to be interested. So overstimulation of social media, overstimulation of, grand weddings and clothes and fit bodies and commodities, all the time blinding us on our news feeds. So where is this one person who's leading a beautiful life and managing everything despite having, a disabled limb or anything else? Where does that person fit into this current media landscape? And how are we going to make that person shine? I think that's really the challenge. So I leave you with these thoughts. And once again, a huge appreciation for all members of the audience for staying till now. And huge congratulations from every one of us on the jury for the excellent reporting. We had a great opportunity to read a lot of fine journalism on the theme, and the absolute pleasure of picking out the best ones for this year. And congratulations to all the award winners, and thank you very much to the ICRC and the PI.
Thank you so much for this enriching discussion. Such deliberations instill us and inspire us, like I'm sure is the case with a lot of young journalists in the room. And they also instill motivation for us to take the legacy of these PII awards to even greater heights in the times to come. I would request you all to please remain on stage as I invite some of our guests here to felicitate you with a small memento of our gratitude. Let me start by inviting on stage Mr. Surinder Singh Oberoi, a consultant with the ICRC now, And as Shashi mentioned in his opening address, somebody who's been a pioneer in conceptualizing these awards. Surinderji, please. I would request Surinderji to kindly felicitate Rakhi Ghoshji. Now I invite Martin, the deputy head of the regional delegation for India, Nepal, Bhutan, and the Maldives, to kindly felicitate Himanshu Vyas with a small token of appreciation. Now I can invite Shashi ji on stage, please, to felicitate Madhvi Lata ji and also Kavita ji with a small token of appreciation. Shashi ji, if you can please join us on stage again. Please have a seat, sir. Finally, I invite again Mr. Kedi Raval Omar to felicitate our moderator for this evening, Jai Sridhar. Kedir, I would also please request you to sit on stage. Please, Kedir. I would also take this opportunity to invite Shri Rajendra Ratnuji again as we begin the final part of proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the most thrilling part of the evening, the moment that we've all been waiting for. We begin the award ceremony this evening in the Best Photograph category. The third prize in the Best Photograph category goes to Shant Kumar from the Times of India, Mumbai, for his pictures, Doctors Have the Ability to Change a Disability. May I request Madhvi Lata ji to please hand over the trophy and certificate to Shant Kumar. I request Shant Kumar to please share a few words with us.
I'm deeply honored and humbled to receive this prestigious award. With these two big giants of Committee of Red Cross and the Press Institute of India, definitely humanitarian wins. I'm truly grateful for these recognitions. This award holds special meaning for me because it recognizes a story that is deeply personal and close to my heart. The story of Premaram. His journey is a testament of human resilience and it has profoundly impacted me, not just as a photojournalist, but as a person. I felt compelled to document Prema's story because of its powerful humanitarian message. At the age of 18 years of age, Prema lost his both hands in a tragic accident at a power station behind his home. For the next 15 years, he lived without his hands, relying entirely on his family for the simplest tasks like eating, bathing, and dressing, witnessing his daily struggle. Yet seeing the indomitable spirit with his face, life moved me very deeply. Prema's journey is to find a matching donor and secure necessary funds for a bilateral hand transplant, which is a first of kind in Asia, was long and arduous. His determination, coupled with unwavering love and support for his family, made the story that needed to be told. I wanted to shine a light on Prema's painful yet inspiring journey and to raise awareness about the critical importance of organ donation. A story is not about one man's trump over a diversity. It's called to action for all of us to consider how we can make a difference by becoming organ donors. I would once again like to express my deepest gratitude to the International Committee of Red Cross and the Press Institute of India for this incredible honor. This award is a reminder of the power of storytelling and its ability to bring the forefront the strength of human spirit. I'm truly humbled and grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you and many congratulations to you, Shant. Now, the second prize in the Best Photograph category goes to Arun Krishnan Kutty for his photo Jilumal Marriott, Passion and Determination Knows No Bounds, published in Matrabhumi Palakar. May I please request Kavita ji to hand over the trophy and certificate to him. May I ask Arun to share a few words, please?
Thank you, PII and IRCC for the incredible honor. I am truly humbled to receive this National Photography Award. About my photo, meet Jilmol, a remarkable individual who has defied the odds and shattered limitations. She born without hands. One of her biggest dreams was to drive a vehicle, and she worked tirelessly to achieve it. After 6 years of unwavering dedication, Jilmol made history by becoming the first woman in Asia to obtaining a driver's license using her feet. Her incredible journey of a testament to the power of hard work and resilience, and resilience and the unbreakable human spirit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun, and many congratulations. As I had mentioned before the proceedings of this event, the competition this year was tremendous, and we have actually 2 winners as joint winners in the second prize category in the Best Photograph ones. Now may I say the other winner of the second prize in the Best Photograph category goes to Murali Krishnan for his photo Those with Eyes to See, published in Matrabhumi, Tiruvananthapuram. May I invite Murali on stage, please? I now request Himanshu Vyas to please hand over the trophy and certificate to Murali.
I am Murali Krishnan. Actually, I am receiving this PII-ICRC award. This is the 4th time I am receiving this award, and I am very grateful for receiving the prestigious award. In my 27 years of photojournalism, this award is not just a recognition of my work, but also a reminder of the responsibility that comes with being a visual storyteller. And about my picture, this is the picture of 16-year-old Akhil, one among the many people who were born with disabilities due to the toxic pesticide endosulfan, which was sprayed years back in various areas of Kasaragod district, Kerala, by the government in the name of protecting crops. He came to protest in front of the government secretariat in the capital city, holding his mother's hand, and he was unable to walk along and had limited vision. The never to say die attitude of Akhil is unparalleled. There were many people like Akhil at the protest march that day. While his mother and others stood with tears in their eyes, Akhil was shouting slogans as loud as he could. Actually, I doubt if my photograph could fully capture his emotion at that moment. I am very much grateful for the opportunity to do this work, and I am committed to continuing to tell the stories that need to be told with integrity, compassion, and respect. I would also like to congratulate all the winners and nominees of the day, and once again, I express my sincere gratitude to Press Institute of India, ICRC, and the judges. Thank you. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Now for the winner in the Best Photograph category. It is Mithun Anila Mithran for his picture Little Gandhi in the Drizzle, published in Deshbhamimani Malayalam Daily. I would request the head of the regional delegation, Kedira Omar, and Lata ji to jointly give the award, please, the trophy and the certificate. Mithun, please share a few words with us.
I don't really know what to say. I was really happy since this beginning, since this morning, and I was not expecting this actually. So, myself, Mithun, I work as a photojournalist in Deshabhimani Daily. That's a regional newspaper in Kerala. And first of all, I thank ICRC, Press Institute of India, and all the jury members who selected me as one of the winners of this award. I know this award is one of the biggest recognitions that journalists can get from our country, and I am at the beginning stage of my career, and this will be one of the biggest milestone in this journey of my life as a photojournalist, for sure. And when I received this award from here, I should mention about Vaibhav, that beautiful kid in my picture. You can see he is autistic, and I was actually assigned to cover the last year's Children's Day rally that was conducted by the State Child Welfare Board in Trivandrum. And this kid was there cosplaying as Gandhi, and there were many other kids along with him, dressed as many other freedom fighters. And actually, when I saw this kid, at the moment I was almost sure about what my picture should be, and I was talking with him and walking along with him from the beginning to the end of the venue. And actually, this picture, this moment happened when a drizzle came all of a sudden, and that's why I called this picture Little Gandhi in the Drizzle. Because when the drizzle came, this teacher with him asked him to walk a bit faster because rain, it was about to rain a bit heavier. And actually, this kid was looking all around his hands at the tiny droplets all over his hands, and he was becoming happier. I could see that. And when the teacher asked him to walk faster, and the teacher also playfully ran with him. You can see in that picture, and this made this kid over the moon. And he also laughed his heart out and started running with his teacher. And that was a moment. And at this moment, I would like to thank some of the persons that always supported me throughout this journey. My father, Mitran, and my mother, Hanila, and Ammu, my girlfriend, who have always been one of the support throughout this journey. And my friends, my colleagues, all of those people who criticized and loved my pictures. And thank you so much once again to Press Institute of India and ICRC. And I congratulate all other winners, and all other photographer winners are my friends, and most of them are my seniors, and I'm so happy to share this award with them. Thank you so much.
Many congratulations, Mithun. Now, quickly, we move to the Best Articles category of this year's Annual Media Awards. We again have joint winners for the third prize in this category. The third prize in the Best Article category goes to Padmaja J for her article No Splash for All, Swimming Dreams for Those with Disability Take a Dive as City Pools Remain Non-Exclusive, published in the Times of India, Chennai. May I now request Jaya Ji, please, to hand over the trophy and certificate to Padmaja J.
So I would like to thank Press Institute of India and ICRC for giving me this award. So how this story came about was that there's this advocacy group in Chennai called the Disability Rights Alliance, and one of my sources, he called me and he said that the person whom I've written about, Geeta Kannan, so she's won a gold medal in a state level competition. So it was a story about her and how she won. So I actually went and met her in the swimming pool in the Nehru Stadium, and she told me that she's from Tambaram. So Tambaram is a place that is around 30 kilometers away from the swimming pool that she's swimming. So the first question I asked was that, why didn't you go and practice in a swimming pool that's very close to your house? And she said that there are no accessible pools for people with disabilities, and that became my story. So I went and told my editors, I would have to thank them, naming them Subramani sir and Praveen sir. So they saw that this was a story that nobody knows about. Like, there are swimmers, there are around 150 trained swimmers in Tamil Nadu who are people with disabilities, and there are hardly any swimming pools for them to train. And I'm glad that I found this story, because as the more and more I heard about Geeta's story, how her family supported her, and how her friends and other people with disability advocates supported her, I think that was also a reason for her to get the award. And when I heard that she feels like she's flying in water, because water has no gravity, and I am really glad I wrote this story. So thank you all.
Congratulations again to you. The joint third prize in this category goes to Ajish T for his article Two Disabled Farmers and Their Great Victory in Farming, published in Malayala Manorama, Kannur. May I please request Rakhi Ji to hand over the trophy and certificate to Ajish.
Good evening, dears. I am very happy and proud on this moment, because this is my third ICRC PII award. Shashidhar sometimes told about 18 years back story. 18 years back, I am the first winner of ICRC PII award. Thank you. Thank you all.
Many congratulations. The second prize in the best article category goes to Avantika Bhuya for her article Are There Safe Spaces for the Invisible Queer Disabled Community, published in the Mint Lounge. May I request Shashi Ji to please hand over the trophy and certificate to Avantika.
I would like to thank the PII-ICRC for this recognition, and also for recognizing the fact that there's no linear perspective on disability. We need to move beyond binaries. We need to look at intersections between gender and ableism, between caste, religion, and talk about these conversations. The story that I did was also an attempt to look at the good work that some of the organizations, some of the individuals are doing, such as Revival Disability India, a lot of neurodivergent queer artists. And while the conversation on this topic, on these various intersections, is still far from where it ought to be, at least it has started. So thank you. Thank you for the honor. Thank you.
Many congratulations and thank you. Now, the first prize in the best article category is Shahid Judge for his article How Para-Archal Sheetal Devi Embraced Who She Is to Find International Success, published in scroll.in. May I request Rajendra Ratnu ji and Latha ji to please hand over the trophy and certificate to Shahid Judge.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the PII and ICRC for giving me this opportunity of being here.
Just about Sheetal, last year she became the first ever woman armless archer to win a world championship medal. And I think she was 16 years old at that point in time. And today, 30th August, just yesterday, she was competing in the ranking round at the Paralympics in Paris at the Mo right now. And she crossed the world record score. So this happened just yesterday. So for me, it's a very nice. After she won that world championship last year in a conversation, I just generally said, okay, next for you is, the Paralympics, and no, the Asian Games. So of course she went to the Asian Games, won the gold medal there. She became the first Indian to be awarded Archer of the Year. And she's the world number one, and she's still going on in Paris right now at the moment. So, and as Jaya ma'am said earlier, that as journalists, the messengers, sometimes it's nice for us to get these small recognitions. So this really means a lot to me, and thank you all once again for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
Many congratulations, Shahid. I congratulate all the winners, and now I hand the floor over to Sandeep Bali, Head of Prevention, ICRC New Delhi, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rohan. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an absolute pleasure and privilege to host you all to this year's PII-ICRC Awards and be part of this fascinating ceremony for the proud and deserving awardees, as well as to hear the views of the expert panel on strengthening disability inclusion. On behalf of Kadir Oval Amar, Head of Regional Delegation, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude and thanks to Chief Guest Ratnuji for being with us this evening and sharing his thoughts and felicitating the winners. A special thanks to Shashiji, our esteemed partner and co-host for these awards. A special and big thanks to the jury and the chair and speakers of the distinguished panel, Jayaji, Madhviji, Himanshuji, Rakhiji, Kavitaji. You have left us with lots of thoughts, relevant thoughts to ponder over this evening. Your valuable insights and sharing of experience have enriched us on the various facets and nuances of journalism for strengthening disability inclusion. Heartiest congrats to the deserving winners of the awards, and special thanks to all of you for bringing stories and pictures of disability inclusion to the forefront. Special thanks to our family from the Red Cross movement, the Indian Red Cross, the Federation, who are in the room and some of us who have joined online. We are also grateful to the distinguished diplomatic representatives and the UN organizations for gracing the occasion. Your continued support to our program strengthens our humanitarian efforts across the globe. Our heartfelt gratitude and big thanks to our colleague Surinder Oberoi for his guidance and active involvement in conceptualizing and shaping the event from start to its culmination tonight. Many thanks to our comm team, Rohan and Ashish, who have been working tirelessly since months, shoulder to shoulder with PII to bring about this prestigious event. A very special thanks to Reggie Thomas, PII, Nazia ji, and special thanks to my ICRC colleagues, Rafiq, Sonam, Ashfaq, Sunil, Gunjan, Roshni, Lalit, Ram, Lil, Darshana, Indru, Bulbul, and Meher, Radhika, and Vedpal for their diligent and wholesome support towards the success of this event. I would also like to make a special mention to the young intern Siddharth, who has been a great support in preparation of the event and instrumental in facilitating outreach to the invitees well in advance for preparation for tonight's gathering. Also, a gratitude and thanks to our ex-colleagues whose continued support strengthens our endeavor. Thank you for being with us tonight. And the young students and journalists who have joined us for this event. As Kadir also mentioned, I also thank the journalist community at Ground Zero for their unwavering commitment to putting the spotlight on humanity's challenge. May I invite all the prize winners to come on the stage for a group photo, please.